But let's move on to the NFC North, your division with your team. You want to start with your Vikings?
Go ahead.
Let's do it. Let's start with the Vikings here. Then we got the additions. Put up the screen now. What do you think? I'm going to let you take it and run with it.
Yeah, I'm happy, actually. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. So one of the biggest things that we struggled with last year was our defense. Our defense was absolute garbage. And, you know, I'm a huge critic of Kirk Cousins. I think that he is a good quarterback, just getting great elite quarterback money, and that's where the discrepancy comes in for me. Kirk Cousins is a more than formidable starter, though, in this league, and he is capable of taking the Vikings as far as they're able to go. Last year, it was Mike Zimmer and the defense that let us down. We picked up Dalvin Tomlinson. Yeah. He is an incredible defensive force up front. Danielle Hunter, I'm hoping that we're able to renegotiate with him and get him back on the team. Michael Pierce, all-pro defensive lineman, opted out because of the COVID issues. He's coming back. Yeah. So hopefully that's able to free up some of those gaps and let Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks run free. You know, we're able to pick up a Patrick Peterson for $10 million. Yes, I know some people are already done with Patrick Peterson, but we need it. So for me, having Pat P as the 1, Jeff Gladney at the 2, and then a Mike Hughes at the 3 or a Cam Dantzler at the 3.
And whoever you draft in the first round.
Because we always draft that cornerback in the first round. It doesn't sound that bad to me. Looking at the offensive side, the one that surprised me the most was losing Riley Reif at tackle. Yeah. It was a big payday for sure, but God dang, we know, I mean, everyone who knows a little bit about football knows the Vikings have always struggled with the offensive line. Why do that to ourselves? Why not just try to renegotiate with him? It's rough. I think that's where we're gonna go this year's tackle, honestly.
Yeah, I think you attack the trenches. I think at the end of the day, that's kind of you got to go O-line, D-line, and then cornerback is still crazy enough. Is still a need.
Is the window over though? Like it is, isn't it? Sadly,
I mean,
as much as I want to flex the Dalvin Tomlinson signing, the Michael Pierce acquisition again coming back.
There's nobody in that additions column that puts you into like the Super Bowl conversation for me now.
And that's what sucks. But on paper, you have a Dalvin, you have a Kirk, you have a Justin Jefferson, and an Adam Thielen, and hopefully an emerging Irv Smith.
Yeah. I absolutely
agree. To see it.
Yeah, I do wonder. I'm getting to the point, and I don't want to do this to you, but I am getting to the point where I'm like, is the scheme just getting? Do they need to revamp? Like, do they need to move on from Zimmer?
Too much of an old head scheme?
Yeah, is the scheme just too old? Like, because they do have all the pieces. You're absolutely right. Like, I love all of those guys in a vacuum, and together they should be great, and they are good at times. But there's also weeks where it's like they are complete duds, and it seems like they can't get anything going. Of course, it's unfortunate, but it feels like their Vikings are good for that, like 3 or 4 games a year, and that always those 4 games that you lose just because you don't come out playing strong.
It's the difference in the
playoffs. It puts you down to like a 10-9 win team. You know, where on paper the roster itself probably should be better than that, and it's not. So you know, I get where you're saying, but yeah, I'm getting to that point. I'm not saying, hey, fire Zimmer.
You don't have quarterback on draft needs, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
There's a chance.
All right,
you don't think there's any way in hell we take a quarterback?
I want to give a little bit of behind the curtain a little bit for people listening. He sent me kind of all the information, and I put up the graphic for this, right? Yeah. So that was kind of how we worked together on this show, and he put in draft needs as everything you see there plus the quarterback position, and I made an executive decision there. I figured
our general manager said that he has done heavy work on this quarterback class.
I get it, and I left it out. Maybe I can't put it back in now because we already talked about how it's not in there.
No, you're good. It's fine. Keep it off.
I kept it. I kept it off because I just don't see you guys realistically targeting the quarterback position when you're paying $40 million for your starter. I don't. Are you thinking a quarterback of the future? Or are you thinking a backup in the mid rounds?
No,
you're thinking quarterback of the future.
Yeah,
I just don't think that's happening this year.
I get that completely.
And you look, you might be right, but you know, I get what you're saying.
Mac Jones in the second round.
Mac Jones not going. Mac Jones isn't falling out of the top 15. That's the thing.
You changed on that much now?
I'm not saying he should. I still think he's a bottom of the first, second round guy.
We pick at 14.
But yeah, well, okay, yeah. If you might, I just can't imagine passing. If you grab Trey Lance at 14, that would be interesting because then you could set him for a year. But Trey Lance doesn't fit what Zimmer wants at all.
You're right.
I mean, you know what I mean?
You're right. He wants the single back under center.
Zimmer would like Mac Jones more.
Zimmer probably would.
Yeah. So maybe Mac Jones goes.
I'm just saying that our general manager has addressed the time of Kirk is you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. That contract will eventually be up.
Yeah, they're realizing that the financial strain of paying a guy in free agency who clearly is there for the money first and foremost is getting to its breaking point a little bit. So yeah, I get what it's saying, and it seems like every team that goes on a run that has the ability to create a really good roster has a young quarterback for 4 years. Yeah. Then they pay him, and then they reload, knowing where they're at.
They're able to work around that.
Exactly, and the Vikings have been kind of in a weird spot. All right, we spent enough time on the Vikings. Let's move on here.
Fuck you.
Well, you know what I mean. I'm trying to keep it rolling here. Let's move on to the Bears, who I think are. Sorry, Bears fans, if you're out there, don't listen to this one. I think they're in contention for like a top 3 pick next year. I really do. I don't see how this doesn't fall apart. I mean, I don't.
You still have a really good defense. They have a great defense.
They do. They absolutely do.
They have a great defense. If Andy Dalton, listen, okay, you'll be back up. I'll be good captain. That's fine. I'm fine with this. I did not want to do it for the fucking Bears, but I'll do it. I don't think Andy Dalton's going to be your starter. I know that he has come out and said that that's the reason that he came to Chicago, was that he was given that job. But listen, Trubisky, Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, whatever the case is, I don't think any of those guys appease me more than what the last guy who was starting does. So I still take that for what it is. You have Allen Robinson. I'm not a big Matt Nagy fan off the top of my head, but the offensive line is solid. They're formidable at times, and I think that you're able to grind out some wins, get a 6 to 8 win season.
Yeah, I get that.
The defense rolls.
I think they overachieved last year. That's my thing. Is I watched a team that overachieved, won games that they probably shouldn't have won, and most consistently. I watch them play games or play teams where it's like, man, you don't win that if you play. You don't win more than like 2 times if you played 5 times in a row. You know what I mean? And just kind of was able to grind out some lucky wins. I feel like at times I see a team that you lost some cornerback depth there. You lost your right tackle. I think that's just their backup right tackle though. Roy Robertson, who was hurt last year, so didn't make a big difference, but he is a pretty good D tackle that they're going to miss. I feel like they definitely have a defense. You're absolutely right. Their defense is really, really good, and their defense is probably going to win them enough games to keep them out of that top 3 convo that I did mention. You're absolutely right about that. It just would not surprise me a bit if they aren't able to get a quarterback, if it just falls apart. It really wouldn't. At a certain point, I don't believe in Matt Nagy either. I don't believe in the offense, and I do believe Trubisky's better than Dalton. I'm sorry, I do. I think Foles is better than Dalton too, and people might argue with that, but I think Dalton is a guy who needs a lot of help around him, and he has some help, so I get it. I saw this Dalton signing as hey, we're going to go trade up and get a quarterback.
There's a chance for that. So speaking of trades, I think it's important that we mention the offer that got leaked. I don't know. So
do you believe this offer? I think it's bullshit. I think the Bears are letting this leak and being like, "Hey, we did our best." Like I really do.
The player names came out today.
Okay, let's hear it.
They offered to Seattle for Russ. It was 3 firsts, a third, Akeem Hicks, and Kyle Fuller. That was the 2 unnamed starters, and Seattle said no to that.
Well, they cut Kyle Fuller, so that wasn't even
after the fact. I'm sure they were trying to throw him in on the deal.
Yeah, Akeem Hicks. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take that deal for Russell Wilson. I'm sorry. I wouldn't. If I have Russell Wilson, I'd rather have Russell Wilson than those fucking first round.
Because
what are those? I mean,
the team getting Russ would make your first round pick devalue in itself because it's going to be good. No,
especially because the Bears' first round pick, it's not like that first round pick has no value compared to like a top 5 pick. Like the Dolphins offer that same pick with like comparable players. I think you consider it solely because at 3 you think you can get a guy to replace him. And really, honestly, you don't even consider it unless it's the Jets offering it.
But because the Jets first really isn't all that whenever it falls from 15 to 25.
Yeah,
it's really not.
Yeah, exactly. So, and look, the Bears are picking at 20 this year. I think they're going to have to trade up in the top 10. I mentioned it. Like, what if they tried to pull off a blockbuster move to get up to 3 to get their pick of the pie? And look, as a Dolphins fan,
blockbuster.
It would be it would be ridiculous. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I do think they're trading up. They're going to get into like the Eagles could trade down. Like they could get to there at least, and maybe it's not as much. But at 3, theoretically, if the Dolphins made that move, would not have a problem with taking those next 3 first round picks.
They sell the entire franchise to go get Mac Jones, Justin Fields, maybe?
I think if they're doing it, they probably go get Justin Fields or Trey Lance or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I agree. I think there's probably going to be a guy there at 22 or at least at like the 15 range where it's not as bad of a trade up. So realistically, that's probably what happens. There is no way in my mind where their first pick isn't a quarterback though. Is that fair to say?
I mean, for sure, unless there's just a chance that somehow 5 quarterbacks go before that and they just sit on their hands and don't make the move.
Yeah,
that's the only way that I see it. And maybe they're going to take this year for what this year is and see what they have in Andy Dalton and wait for next year's class. I don't know.
The reason I feel like it's such a time sensitive thing is because Nagy and Pace are not going to be there next year to have figure it out with a new quarterback.
I completely agree with you on that urgency because you got to look at the coaching staff as a whole. They're like, hey, that's cool. Like some dude's like, why don't we wait till next year? There's Sam Howell, there's Brock Purdy, there's some good names coming out. And then Nagy's like, I won't be here next year if I do this again. Yeah. And he's right.
Yeah, he's absolutely right.
He's got to make the move.
And the thing is, if I'm the ownership, there's no way I put the decision makers in that type of situation where they feel like they're up against a wall and they have to make a decision that is not long term. That is not even 3 years. It's a panic button short term move. If I can get a quarterback that I like, and if I can get him to show that he has enough promise under our system to keep me around for another year, maybe I can keep my job. If that's the way your head coach and GM is thinking, I mean, I would have moved on already. I mean, I would have. I'm sorry, but that's just my take. Anywhere else you want to go with the Bears? I mean, as far as their actual moves, nothing crazy here.
I don't think they're that bad though.
I get what you're saying.
The defense gets me going.
I totally get what you're saying.
Hicks, Khalil Mack, Roquan Smith, Eddie Jackson.
Baller defense, all over the field, All right, well, let's go to Green Bay, and we got a little bit different graphic for you right now. Re-signed and losses, because there's almost no additions from when I made this graphic, and I'll go back and double check before we post this, so maybe it's different on what you're looking at. But right now, they re-signed a bunch of guys. They lost some players. What's your reaction to this graphic? What do we think?
Preston Smith was vital to their pass rush. He's very important. I think Devin Funchess is an underrated, forgotten about guy who opted out because of the COVID year and who might be able to come in and actually have some valuable minutes in that weird second to third role where MVS and Lazard are always who's going to be that guy of the week. It could be Devin Funchess and just Devin Funchess' role. Aaron Jones, $13 million averaged out a year, right, over 4 years or so. It's
4 for 48. I don't remember. He got some good running back money for sure.
Good. Didn't think it was going to happen after he hit the market.
I was shocked it happened. I'm not going to lie. I was shocked. I was convinced that you don't draft an A.J. Dillon if you're going to pay Aaron Jones. I don't really believe in paying the running backs, so I was pretty surprised. I think Aaron Jones probably could have gotten more on the open market, but I think he realized the value of staying in Green Bay. So, it was a surprising move, but I get it.
Man, maybe a couple million more going somewhere else, but to get to stay in this offense where he's at and now take away Jamal Williams – I think Aaron Jones is going to be the dude going forward. It didn't make any sense though because I think
they're going to do AJ Dillon is going if you were an Aaron Jones owner and I was last year or 2 years ago whatever it was and you watched the Green Bay Packers run the football, you hated Jamal Williams with a fucking passion because he got so many more snaps than he should, and I guarantee you're going to feel the same fucking way about AJ Dillon. I would be shocked if you don't.
It only makes sense because why use a last year first round pick on the quarterback and then a second round pick on the running back that we're not going to get to see for 2 to 3 years of development process? That doesn't make any sense. A.J. Dillon will have to be involved into this. Looking at some of their losses, we already mentioned Jamal Williams, Christian Kirksey, interchangeable linebacker, Montrevious Adams, defensive end, but they'll be okay without him. He was kind of plug-and-play starter, if you will. They didn't lose anything that's detrimental to this team.
Corey Linsley is the big one to me. That's a very, very good center.
And it segues right into what they need on that draft, an interior offensive lineman. Yeah. They got to take care of that role.
Big need for him at IOL there down at the bottom corner. I think wide receiver, it's crazy that they're going into the season with the exact same need almost everywhere. D-line is only really a need because I feel like they lost some pieces, and I don't think it's a huge need, but I definitely wanted to put that in there. Linebacker, again, feel kind of the same way, but wide receiver and interior offensibe line, I mean, big need. Yeah.
Where do you want them to go?
First round wide receiver. I can't remember exactly. They're drafting similarly, because they'd be drafting 28.
They're totally in like Rashad Bateman territory.
Yeah. They're drafting either 29 or 30 because they made it to the NFC Championship. So one of those two, they could get Bateman. I'm not as high. I don't think Bateman's a first rounder. I would rather
Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney would be fucking awesome. I really like. Terrace Marshall. I mentioned in a different video.
I'm a Rondale Moore believer. I know a lot of people.
I like Rondale Moore.
I could see a Rondale Moore here.
Rondale Moore makes a lot of sense for me. Rondale Moore is just like the injury keeps him out of the first round for me, because I mean he had that amazing, ridiculous season, and when he was on the field the past 2 years, he flashed everything you want to see. I mean his explosiveness out of a cut is ridiculous, like absolutely fucking ridiculous. But I don't know if teams are going to be scared of the injury. So that's the only thing that gets me. But yeah, and any one of those guys, I think Elijah Moore's another underrated guy who's like early second kind of conversation that could get lucky and get drafted by the team that likes him. But yeah, I'd like to see wide receiver. I think the only reason I'd rather see wide receiver there than IOL is because I think you could get interior depth in second, third round and be fine. Yes. So
they desperately need to hit at the wide receiver position. I guess they keep pissing off Aaron Rodgers. He'll win another MVP, so something's working for him.
Fuck it. Draft another running back. Why not?
Do another quarterback. Go ahead, Green Bay.
Get really Jamie Newman.
Piss him off?
Get Jamie Newman in the first. Fuck it. All right, let's move on to the Detroit Lions, and they have a lot of losses. I mean, we know what this is. This is a rebuild. This is the tear down before the rebuild, right? Looking at this graphic, what's your first reaction here?
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
But if you're a fan, you should be okay with it being bad. You want this. You want to see the coach come in. You want to see him have his guys around him. Strip the roster down, bare minimum, save your cap, get some picks, bring in some assets, ship guys out, get low-tier guys in. I think the Jared Goff move, I don't have a problem with that. Jared Goff wasn't the guy at the Rams. He was in a very good system, and we got to see flashes at times where it was formidable. Maybe he gets some legs under him. Maybe the system is built around him. Either way,
I think he's going to be a great backup for a long time.
Exactly. And no matter what, he is a placeholder until you're able to do what you're doing until then. Yeah. So, it is what it is. I'm not going to talk about what they have really. It's more of where they could go. In the draft, you name it.
Yeah, dealer's choice for a reason.
This is the reason we have the dealer's choice thing. They can go anywhere almost.
Yeah. I can't think of a position where I would be upset if they drafted in the first round. I really can't.
Running back is the only
running back. Yeah, well, yes, of course, yeah. But yeah, realistically, guys that should be there. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I 100% agree. This is what you're looking for. If you're a Detroit Lions fan, you're not looking for wins or losses. Who cares, right? You almost want to be in that top 3 range, number 1 range. Like you're fine with that. It's not going to be great. You want to see the grit. You want to see what we saw from the Dolphins in the 2019 season at the end. Grit from the players and belief in the coach that he is pushing his guys, getting the most out of them.
Last year's New York Giants team.
Exactly where I was going with it. Yes, you want to see that. I don't care about the wins. I want to see team. They could go 1-15 and it's a fine season as long as you saw this team fighting at the end of every single game, giving good teams a run for their fucking money and for 3.5 quarters. Maybe not being able to finish the game. That's fine. The talent's not going to be there compared to some of the good teams in the NFL. It's okay. You're not going to win a lot of games this year. But, man, if you can see that grit, you can believe in Dan Campbell moving forward. I like the personality. I like the energy that we're seeing from Detroit's front office. Hopefully we see that type of thing, and it's rebuild. Who doesn't like watching a good rebuild? I mean,
he said no matter what. I mean, they're going to go in there ready for a fight, no matter what it is.
Oh yeah, we're eating kneecaps, right?
Eating kneecaps. And that's what they're going to have to do because for the next 2 years they're going to be pretty down there. So yeah, get ready.
I absolutely agree. All right, we will move on